Mitchell Starc bowled Australia's first delivery in this test, which of course is what usually happens. If we know anything about him at all, it's that he bowls very, very early. But what else do we know about him? Starc is really tall, really fast, and really left-armed. That should be enough for greatness on its own in tests, but his career arc has been far weirder than that. And let's look at him just by tools. He has speed, height, arm, bounce, and swing. Accuracy and high-end skills are probably the only things that he doesn't quite have. That suggests that he should be one of the greatest bowlers of all time. But nothing about Starc follows a normal path. He is one of the best bowlers of his era, but certainly nowhere near the top of this list. And there are no bowlers on here without incredible talent. This cluster at the front is the elites. Rabada, Steyn, Cummins, Anderson, Jadeja, Philander, and Ashwin. And with Starc's tools, he could be here. But instead he's at the back of this second wave, next to Mohammad Shami, who spent years probably not taking as many wickets as many of us thought he should have. And also bowls in India, so doesn't get as much helpful conditions. But look how Starc moves when you take out the day-night tests. He disappears from that quality second cluster and ends up near players like Shannon Gabriel, Ben Stokes, and Umesh Yadav. And if you look at all the bowlers with 20 wickets or more in day-night tests, well, there aren't that many to begin with. But all of them except for Stuart Broad are much better with the pink ball than they are with the red. And of course that makes sense. But Lyon, Hazlewood, Anderson and Cummins have nearly identical rises. Starc's numbers actually look like Anderson and Cummins, but he ends up almost near Lyon. So most of these guys get a small bump from day-night test cricket. But Starc's is absolutely huge. Without those pink ball wickets, which of course he still earned by the way, he's a marginally better than average bowler. Many people over the years have talked about his record against the tail. But we've done an entire video on that one time, and that's not really true. He's very good against top order as well. However, the day-night stuff is completely real. And it's not that surprising that he's good with the pink ball, as many bowlers say it can act more like the white ball. And Starc is incredible with that one. The last two World Cups, he's been the best bowler in the world. 18 wickets more than Mohammad Shami is his closest competition, at nearly half a run and over less. In fact, forget a few spinners, Starc has been the best bowler in ODI cricket since his career began. Certainly the best seamer. And part of that is how good he is with the brand new ball. That reputation also carries over to the test game. And obviously he's almost automatically been Australia's first over guy. He bowls overs 1, 3, 5 and 7 largely because that is the idea of when he will be at his best. That's why they give him that brand new ball. He averages 26 in the first 6 overs of a test match, which is fine, but clearly not anywhere near the elite bowlers here, and this doesn't include his 2 teammates. So let's pop them in as well. And suddenly you can see the fun bit. Both Cummins and Hazlewood are better new ball bowlers than Starc. But the pattern always made sense. For instance, Cummins doesn't need the new ball. He's good kind of all the way through. And Starc may not be at his level with it, but he's far better when using it than when not. And that plan also allows for Australia to have 3 bowlers in combination with very different skills, and there's no let up at first change. But in this test, they did something slightly differently. Hazlewood was the one to give up the new ball, and I'm not really actually sure why that was. This was the first time since 2020 in a test match that Hazlewood hasn't had the new pill. And really since 2017, it's been very rare for him not to take the new ball in any format for Australia. And today, it didn't work. Hazlewood got flogged early on in his spell, and as it currently stands, these are the most expensive figures he has ever had, and not by a little bit. They could, of course, come down later on in the match, but it's also worth noting that last week was his second most expensive spell, so take that for what it is. But if Hazlewood is a new ball bowler, then Starc is a brand new ball bowler since 2015. That is his gig, over and over again. Sometimes he gets pushed all the way to second bowler, but even that is very rare. And I want to focus on a couple of things here. This clump in 2022, you can see is when Australia lost confidence in Starc and the new ball at the World Cup. Largely this was because he'd stopped swinging the ball because they were actually asking him to become a wobble ball bowler. But for this story, these are the more important moments, 2019 and 2023. 2019 for the Ashes, Australia used Starc as a second change bowler. That was the last time he played for Australia and didn't get the new ball. The next time was the World Test Championship final at the Oval. I don't think it's a coincidence that both those games were in the UK because that means they were both using Duke's balls. And they are obviously very different to Kookaburras or SGs. The Dukes don't swing as much early on because it's usually later when the lacquer comes off the ball. And instead of telling you this, the best way to show you is through the medium of Tim Southey. He's another seamer who likes the new ball and swings the Kookaburra everywhere. But look at his record in England with the very new ball. Outside of a weird blip in overs 40 to 50, his record in the UK is pretty similar to that in New Zealand. But Not with the new ball. It really doesn't work as well for traditional swing bowlers early on. It's much better if you are using the seam. And Southee is a much better swing bowler than Starc. In fact, Southee was probably the last true international swing bowler until the wobble ball gobbled them all up. And Starc is not really a swing bowler. He's a bowler who can swing the very new ball for short periods of time. That's a very different kind of bowler, and it means that he desperately needs the very new ball. But in England, it's hard to work out exactly when the lacquer might come off, but it's obviously later on. And the Aussies know this, and they had a lot of discussions on when to bowl him in the UK. Hence why he wasn't given the new ball in the second innings against India. So my first thought was simple. Just don't give Starc the new ball. Whether it's Boland, who's obviously not in this test, Hazelwood or Cummins, all of them have better skills when it's suited to using the early dukes. Starc is perfect for the brand new nut outside of England, but over here the seam bowlers are just better options than him. In the World Test Championship final, he bowled 2 overs up front. He started with a bouncer, his next ball was back of a length, and Rohit tucked it away. The third is a length ball. It's shaped back in a little bit. The fourth is a ball you want in the bowl, very full and swinging back in. He gets his line wrong again on the pads and finishes the over with a nice one that curves around their stumps a little bit. Next one, he starts with the back of a length ball just outside leg. He swings it, but it doesn't matter. Then there's a length ball that swings a little bit, but is a nice delivery. This ball almost seems to slip out of his fingers almost entirely. Well, I hope it does, otherwise it's a really odd ball. And then he slightly over pitches the last one, but it's okay. The point is that these aren't 2 horrible overs. He has bowled far more that are way worse, but it does show you that he's not completely on the spot. He's not probing, and the other thing you notice is that the ball isn't actually swinging that much. It's curving a little bit, but nothing that an opener should be overly concerned with. The easy thing is just to not give it to him at all, but there is a hitch in that when it comes to England, because Ben Duckett is another odd cricketer, a little bit like Starc. And I'm not even talking about the fact that Duckett averages twice as much in London playing first-class cricket as he does anywhere else. But no matter the location, the best zone to bowl to Duckett is back of a length just outside off. It was something very obvious when he played ODIs against South Africa. We talked about it a lot on TalkSport, and at the time, so did Simon Hughes. Of course, the easy option to these kinds of balls is just to leave them alone. They're not going to hit the stumps. And that is exactly what Duckett said to Hughes' tweet. But there is a hitch here. Ben Duckett does not leave the ball. And when I say he doesn't leave, I mean compared to all normal openers in the world, Ben Duckett does not actually believe that the leave is a shot or a non-shot or whatever it is. The second least leaves by an opener in the last 2 years of Test cricket is Shafiq, and he does it 17% of the time. Duckett does it 1.8% of the time. Now, the interesting thing here is that Australia's best hope of bowling that back of a length outside of off-stump line was obviously going to be Starc or Cameron Green. However, because Starc was bowling early, it meant that he was going to try his swing. And most of his deliveries didn't go, but a couple went absolutely massively. But when he did hit that zone against Duckett, he got one edge over slips and another one that fell short. Because he had the new ball, mostly he just bowled full. But he wasn't even doing that all the time because Starc never stays in one spot. He is not a line and length bowler, he is a line or length bowler. And that is not what is needed in England. Overall, Starc's away record actually holds up pretty well. He's clearly at a different level at home, but if you took out all the pink ball wickets, he's basically almost as good at home as he is away. But let's break that up by country. You'll see that India and the UAE are his only places where he really struggles. The West Indies and Sri Lanka cannot handle him at all. But overall, he's done fine in England. The problem is that an average of 31 in England is not especially that good. And Starc has 10 tests in England, and 8 of them were before 2016. He is a very different bowler now than he was back then. But in 2013 and 15, he really wasn't an experienced test bowler. In 2019, the only test he played was at Manchester, where he lost the new ball in the second innings, and he made 54, which is his only 50 since 2017. And so while he strengthens the tail, he's certainly not an all-rounder candidate. So what else does Starc bring to the team? You will hear a lot of his impact on Nathan Lyon's career. Commentators love talking about how left armers help off spinners. Well, when we've looked up that proof, we've certainly never found it. And certainly it hasn't helped Nathan Lyon in his career, although I do understand the logic. There's also the economy question. In the World Test Championship final, he went at more than 5 runs and over in each innings. But against England in this match, he was hovering around 8 for much of the day. And it's weird to think that a good white ball cricketer would struggle. But he's a different kind of beast with the red ball, and without the early swing of the white one, he does struggle a lot. But even through all this, he still takes wickets. Only 3 bowlers in the world take them quicker than Mitchell Starc does since his career began. A wicket every 49 balls is something quite special. And so even on the second day at Lord's, where he struggled with the Bazballing England, he still took Joe Root with a bouncer. Because he always takes wickets, even on gloomy days. But the truth is, he needs special treatment. He is just not a bowler that fits in normally. And today something quite weird happened after Starc got the new ball. That is when tea was called. And it meant that Australia kept him on after tea. So he bowled twice with the new ball. 3 overs before and then a couple after. And it was his 5th over where he got hit from runs, so they yanked him from the attack. So why does this matter? Because it meant that Starc didn't bowl with the Duke's ball from overs 10 to 25. Or as it is known in the UK, the time when it actually swings. It is counterintuitive to think of someone who can bowl that many great balls, is that tall, fast and left-armed, and they might still also need special treatment. I once described him myself as a saber-toothed tiger. Of course, they still went extinct. And as good as Starc can be, sometimes he just needs his hand held a little bit. For this innings, he was just used wrong. And when that happens, he rarely ever has a good day.